Hello friends, and welcome back to Maple Bay Potager. My name is Faye, and today I want to take you on a walk through the garden. It is the end of June, and we have had, I think, double our monthly average of rainfall. So everything is very saturated, very green. Some things are struggling, and we're going to go take a look and talk about it. So starting off on the deck, I still have lots of plants yet to plant in the meadow. Most of these are perennials, and so they really, I feel, can get planted at any time as long as the weather cooperates. So they were not top priority like the vegetable garden annuals. I have some pots here. I trimmed back the trees around the deck quite a bit in the last couple weeks, but I don't know if you'll be able to see. We have a blue jay nest in our tree by our deck here, so I didn't trim as much as I would have because I wanted to leave them some cover. But I did trim some to give these plants a bit more sun. Of course, the day I'm gonna film for you, nothing is blooming. We have had so much rain, things are looking a little tattered. But we're supposed to have a couple of days of sun here, so it'll give me an opportunity to cut the grass and hopefully things will start to grow and bloom again. The tomatoes do not seem to mind the moisture. So far, all these plants are looking really good and starting to set some flowers. I think we'll start over in the in-ground garden today, just because that's where the sun hits first. But this is looking good. This peony is the last one to bloom because it's more shaded. And that's going to work out nicely because the two that have already bloomed got rained on and it kind of just blows the blossoms all apart. So I still have lots of things I haven't planted. But the weather has been ridiculous. And I have never had my cucumbers do this, but they are like rotting, and the rot is starting at the growing point. And so it started with just one cucumber was struggling, and now last I counted 9 in this bed are really struggling, and there goes another one. But we did just have another few inches of rain yesterday. I think it's all the rain. But our soil is basically like beach sand, so we have a really good drainage, but you can see like how the water has been moving through here. And so I feel like all this rain we've gotten has shown just how well this system has been working for drainage in the beds, where I have excavated the paths and the beds are kind of raised. That allows for the beds to kind of drain. These pathways take on the water, and I don't know if you can tell, but it's also on a bit of a slope towards the road. So it takes the water away from the house down to that path, down to the meadow, which is on the other side of the... So yesterday when it was pouring rain, these walkways were full of water, but the beds weren't. And you can see today everything's looking pretty happy. So I think we will start down on the other end. But even these walkways are dry now. The raspberries are setting flowers. The bees have been all over here. It looks like it's going to be a good raspberry year again. Little tulip barking at the neighbors. Still haven't gotten to these bags. Or this. This peony is looking good. So this is the east end of the garden on the south side of my house. This is where I keep threatening to plant my sunflower starts, but that hasn't happened yet. Maybe by the next video those will be there, but really that's one of the last things. And like I say, the weather has just been so weird, so I'm trying to be nice to myself about it. Along the house here I have asparagus and walking onions. And it was a really awful year for asparagus. I don't know if it was just the cold winter. I don't know if it was asparagus beetle. But I just had really, really thin stalks. And a couple of my plants actually died over the winter. They never came back. So I think I have decided I will be moving the asparagus this fall over to the perennial bed. But we'll talk more about that if and when that happens. And in this first bed here, I have a row of cabbages and straw flowers. So I just alternated red cabbages. These I think are called Red Express. And this is tiara cabbage. And there is a lot of volunteer dill because I had dill planted here last year. As you can see, I pulled all the dill sprouts out of this bed this week actually, and I've just been using them as like dill microgreens or like baby dill. Tastes the exact same. I think I'm actually gonna dehydrate all the leftovers because we can't go through it all, because this was just a carpet. Like how this looks, the whole bed looked like that. But they were about this size. So in this bed I have the beets that we will eat fresh through the summer. So there's some Detroit Red and Early Wonder Tall Top on this side. There is some golden beets in the middle here that had pretty poor germination. I think we've also had cutworms. Sometimes I struggle with that with my beets, so I think I will come back in maybe and sow some more in the blank patches. On this side I have bull's blood beets, which have these really pretty red leaves that stay dark red as the plants grow. They're so pretty and delicious. But I think they are more often grown for their greens than their beets because they are so dark. So in this next bed, I have some successes and some failures and some weeds. This bed has from here over potatoes, and with the 90-degree days after planting and then like 6 inches of rain in 10 days, I dug up a potato down here to see what was going on, and the seed potato was rotten. I went to buy some more seed potatoes and was talking to the lady at the checkout, and she said that a lot of people locally have been having that issue this year, and I think it is just the weather. So I did buy another bag of seed potatoes, but like I say, I think we've had another like 3-4 inches of rain in the last couple of days since I bought them, so I didn't think that was the best time to go ahead and plant them. So I think this week will be better, hopefully. the forecast is looking a little bit more reasonable for planting. So I'm gonna try and plant some more potatoes. Might not get big potatoes out of them, but I'd rather have baby potatoes than no potatoes. Beside the potatoes here, I have a row of Viola d'Asiago. Sorry for that pronunciation if you're Italian. But these are an Italian drying bean, and they're a really pretty purple bean. I've grown them for a couple of years now and really, really like them. I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, that the plants also have purple flowers, but don't quote me on that. And then I just have my trellis for the pole beans here that I made out of bamboo canes. Last year this trellis fell down, but that was because I never actually finished building it, so I'm hoping this year we have better success. But I also kind of changed it up, and I pulled the tops of the bamboo together to make kind of little teepees, and then still did the side supports. Hopefully this will be a nice strong trellis that won't blow down this year, because underneath, I have a raspberry I have to dig out here. I have celery planted all underneath this trellis, and they are looking like they are loving the rain that we've been getting. They had some bad sunburn because it got really, really hot after right after I planted them. Even though I had hardened them off, they scorched really bad. So it's good to see them bouncing back. On this side of the trellis, I have the pale lavender gray beans. And they're labeled as a bush bean, but last year for me, they grew to be like 8 feet tall. So I am providing them with good trellis support this year. And they are very, very prolific, beautiful, speckly, like the name says, lavender gray drying bean. And I think you can eat any bean, fresh or dried, but some are grown for the specific purpose of being eaten fresh because they are less stringy. Some are, have a better texture dried or store better dried or whatever, but you can eat any bean dried or fresh. These, I think, are for both purposes generally, how people use them. So in this next bed, we have started with the beans and the celery, and the rest of the bed here is planted with the onions that we started in the seed snails. And a lot of these onions, look at this dog. She knows those are the pea plants. Yeah, you busted. She'll eat the plant if I'm not careful. So this bed here I have planted with our onions that we started in the seed snails, and I think that most of this bed, other than the white onions, was all seed that I saved. And these onions are looking great. And you can see that the carrots are coming up in between. So I like to plant my onions and my carrots in the same spot, basically on top of each other. And you can see here, I had amaranth, red amaranth, planted in this bed and let it go to seed. And we have lots of amaranth. I'm actually just gonna walk over here. There is lots of amaranth that has volunteered in this bed. And so what I've been doing is, as they get to like this size, I just pick them and use them kind of like a microgreen in salads. Because if you didn't know, the whole plant is edible. You can eat the baby greens, you can saute the larger greens, and the seeds are used as a grain kind of similar to quinoa. And that is a plant indigenous to North America. has been eaten for many, many, many centuries. So this is what I mean when I say that the rain really just, I mean, these peonies have been blooming for a while now, but unfortunately, even though this plant has a support, with heavy, heavy rain, they will still just kind of fall over. On the end of this bed is a wild streambank hollyhock, which is the only hollyhock, I think, that is native to North America. And this actually was a volunteer in my garden. One of my neighbors used to have a big one in their front yard, and so I think the birds planted this one here. Gosh, I think this has been here since like 2021 or 2022. And this year I tried dividing a piece of it out, which is not advisable because, like most hollyhocks, these have a big taproot. But I'll show you when we get over to the perennial bed. The piece that I divided out is establishing quite well. And in the rest of this bed, we have my cylindra beets, which are a long cylinder beet, and I really like them. They're a good storage beet, and they're really awesome for canning and pickling. They're nice to process. The skins slip off really easily. And I had really good germination on these, so hopefully it's going to be an awesome beet year. Sorry for my shadow, the sun is out. But at the top of the bed here, I have some red and white Russian kale, and there's a little red cabbage on the end. This is pineapple weed. I like it for tea. It tastes like pineapple. Tulips peas here. So over on the other side of the beet bed here, I still haven't planted the rest of tulips peas yet, but I should do that like today. The first planting, let's see, are blooming. We haven't had any peas set quite yet. And I haven't planted my tomatillos yet because they were really small, and then it's just been raining, but I think I just need to bite the bullet and put them in the ground. Here are my zinnias from my seed that I saved, which was from the, there's a lygus bug in there. They'll eat zinnia blooms, buggers. So these are from my zinnia mix I saved seed. I haven't planted those yet, obviously. This is the celosia. I don't know if this is the color it's supposed to be. I've never grown this before, but to me it looks a little bit yellow, and maybe that is because it has been raining so much. I keep having to dump this bucket they're living in out. The cucumbers haven't seemed to mind yet. I'm really glad I started so many cucumbers, because when we get over there, That's really sad, they're dying. So the tomatillos will be planted here. These are my so here on the other side of the tomatillo bed, these are the Sleeping Lady tomatoes. And they're looking good. They're starting to put on some big flower buds here. And in my experience, these tomatoes are very productive. Here in the next bed, we have our vining and our microdwarf tomatoes. So I've built this A-frame trellis out of bamboo, similar to what I have used for my beans, but instead of pulling the tops together like the teepees, I've just left them kind of like an A-frame and then put the side supports on here. And this is how I've trellised my tomatoes for a number of years now, and it works really well for me. Being in the north, generally it's dry here. This year I may prune my tomatoes more than I normally do, but usually I don't really prune them much other than I will prune off the lower branches. Once they reach the trellis, I like to have no branches on the tomato from this support down to the ground. And that just helps keep the splashback from the rain off of the leaves, which can lead to disease, fungal disease. And so because it has been a really wet year, I might prune more of the suckers off of these plants. So the suckers, if you don't know, this is the main stalk of the tomato. This is a branch, and kind of in the armpit here, there is a new little branch forming. This is called a sucker, and it will become like a main leader stem like this is. In some areas, people will prune all of their suckers off of their tomatoes to increase airflow around the plant and help to prevent it from getting sick, because humidity and things like the backsplash of the dirt onto tomatoes and the heat can really stress tomatoes out and lead to disease. When it gets too hot, tomatoes will also drop their fruit. So it can be a little high maintenance to grow tomatoes depending on where you live. Usually it's not too bad here because I don't have to prune them, but like I say, it's been a humid year, and I'm kind of wondering if it's not going to get really hot with July coming up. So I probably will prune these tomatoes more than I normally do. But you can see here that they are starting some of these plants. This is the biggest one. This is the unicorn peach. It has some open blossoms here. And I think I have fixed the hydrophobic soil on this end of the bed. This is the tomato plant that was really wilted in my last walk through the garden. This is a variegated tomato. So if you can see all the white patches on the leaves, that's called variegation. And I just think it's really pretty, but this variety is called Phelan's First Snow. And I got these seeds from Moonglow Gardens. These produce a Cherokee Purple tomato. This is actually a stabilized variety from the Cherokee Purple tomato, but it has variegated leaves. So on this end, I have my cherry tomatoes. All of the microdwarf tomatoes planted underneath produce cherry tomatoes. I've not found a microdwarf tomato that produces a large tomato. You can see the potato leaf varieties with the different shape leaf. So that's still a tomato plant, and it will produce tomatoes just like any other tomato plant, but it just has the different leaf shape, which is kind of interesting. I have two varieties that are potato leaf, and both of them are Karen Olivier. So I think this one is Midnight Sun and the other one is Taiga, I believe. But everything's looking really good. These are kind of a neat variety. These are a microdwarf tomato, and they're called Carrot. And if you can see, the leaves kind of resemble carrot leaves, but they are a tomato plant. You can see they have some flowers open here. I'm very excited for tomato season. Happy to see that these plants are looking better after their rough start. They had a windstorm and really hot weather. They scorched, and then there was frost warnings, so they're looking really, really good. Tomatoes are really resilient. So on the end of this bed here, I have another little row of kale and cabbage, and there are straw flowers planted in between. And I have another trellis above the path here, where again I have done the teepee kind of style, but still have those side supports. Hopefully these will be really nice and strong. So on this end of the bed, I have, this is mostly leeks. There's a couple of random onions that I used to fill in a spot where I ran out of leeks. But I believe most of these, maybe half of these, some of these, we'll say some of these, are from seed that I saved. And these were started in the seed snails, and they are doing really well. So the way that I planted these is I dug a trench about 6 inches deep, and then I placed my leeks in, and when I planted them, there was just kind of the tops of the greens poking out, and you can see that they develop those stalks coming up out of the ground, and that will give you a longer like white shank on your leek, which is kind of the part you want to eat. And that's instead of hilling. Some people will hill their leeks like potatoes. I just like to dig a trench and plant them deep. Then in between the leeks, there are carrots, and they are starting to come up. I planted all of the carrot seeds that I have this year. I'm going to have thousands of carrots if everything goes according to plan. So on this trellis, on this side here, I have my, oh gosh, I never remember the full name. They are, I believe, the magnolia tendril sugar snap pea, and they're the purple ones. So they are a vining, so they have the trellis here to climb up. They have beautiful purple blossoms, and the pods of the peas are purple as well. They're a really beautiful plant. And underneath, beside the walkway here, oops, sorry the sun is out, it's kind of hard to see, but I have celeriac plants in and amongst the weeds here. And they are doing well. They also had a rough start with the weather and had some shock after transplanting and some sunburn and all the rest of it. And they are looking really good now, so that's nice to see. And then on this side of the trellis, I have the mushroom pole beans, which are the beans that taste like a mushroom. which doesn't sound like a real thing, but I grew them last year for the first time and they really do. So you can eat them as a green bean, like a snap bean, fresh, and they taste like a mushroom, or you can eat them, like dry them and use them as a dried bean and they still taste like a mushroom. They're so cool. Probably one of my favorite beans I've ever grown, because I love mushrooms and I don't grow mushrooms in my garden yet. That's something I aspire to do someday. But anyways, the rest of this bed, look at these onions. So on, like, I think it's this row and this row are the blush storage onions that we started in the soil blocks, and they're doing really well. But I don't know, there's really not much of a difference between the soil block ones and the ones that we started in the seed snails. They've really caught up. So I am absolutely sold on starting onions and leeks in seed snails. And this bed needs to be weeded, but hopefully you can see here. There are carrots coming up in between the onions, and they are looking good too. Like, oh my gosh, look at that bulb. Looks like it's shaping up to be a good onion year. So everything in the garden has, well, not everything, I guess. The little tiny things that are coming up, like the baby beets here, the peas have grown quite a lot, but they were little when I fertilized. But the garden, everything that is mature enough has had a dose of vermicompost tea. The tomatoes have had 2 rounds. And I will be showing you how I make my vermicompost tea, as well as my fermented fertilizer that I make. I think I'm going to be straining that today actually, and that's going to be my next round of fertilizer, will be the fermented fertilizer. But I'll show you that. So this bed here, if you can see the little lines, there are carrots planted. I have a row of leeks along the edge there. But I ran out of leeks. If I had enough leeks, I would have done the whole bed. Leeks and carrots. And I noticed the other day, now am I going to be able to find any? There are some little carrots germinating in here, along with the weeds and the volunteer dill, which is going to be fun to try and figure out what is dill and what is carrots, because they look very similar as babies. They're related. Our chamomile over here has started to bloom. Need to come and pick some of this. I love chamomile. Chamomile iced tea sounds so good right now. Oh, I was like, I thought my spinach died, but there it is. A little shrimp. It looks like this hollyhock might actually bloom this year. And this one has the fig-shaped leaves. So I think that this is a white hollyhock. Over here we have the onions that I'm going to hopefully be saving seed from. And they are just starting to form some flowers here, so that's good. And this is it gonna focus? This is a beet flower. So they are related to spinach, and the flowers look similar. So again, these are beets that I'm going to be trying to save seed off of this year. Some more chamomile. Hey now. Tulip. You're a mess. Look at that grass hanging out of your mouth. You're a mess. What are you doing? So on the other end of this bed, we have a couple more red cabbage and Russian kale. And at the top of where we have the onions, carrots here. I have another row, and I do have straw flowers planted in between all the different rows in the beds of the cabbages and the kales. And those were just planted, I think, last week, and they're looking great. Around this time of year where I live, because we're so far north, the days are really, really long. And so I tend to prefer to wait to plant starts. So like you can see my tomatillos we talked about over there. I find it actually more beneficial to wait to plant them because this time of year things will catch right up. Here's another sad potato bed. This one had better luck than the other one we looked at. So I have a little fence here because potatoes get quite tall, and I have celeriac planted along the edge of the path here along with some volunteer dill and poppies. But the potatoes are to the other side of the fence there, and you can see I have quite a big bare patch here. So this week sometime I will be planting those seed potatoes that I bought. On this side of the path, I have more celeriac and more volunteer dill. And then these are the volunteer black peony poppies, and it looks like these will be the first to bloom. Putting on buds already. And there's also dill in this bed, and looks like, I don't know if you can see that. Looks like there's also a volunteer larkspur there. Here on the other side of the bed, a little tulip for scale. The hollyhock is going to bloom, and that looks like it's going to be a white one. Probably a baby from the one that was here last year. And the delphiniums look like they have recovered well from the delphinium worm. And they have some nice tall stalks. Can you excuse me, tulip? Thank you. But these stalks have some flower buds, so it looks like the birds saved us from the delphinium worm ruining our blooms. So here's another look at my extra pansies and violas that I keep threatening to plant but haven't gotten to. There's a cute little, some kind of a bee there. I scared him away. But here's a look at the in-ground space from the west side facing to the south. And today is June 30th. So like I say, a bit behind, but I don't think we're too late by any means. And I think we will start over on this side of the raised bed garden, because the sun is out Didn't start early enough today. Maybe we'll actually do the raised bed garden tonight when the sun goes behind the trees. Maybe that's what we'll do. So here is the perennial bed. And please excuse the lawn. It just has been raining every single day. So I know it needs to be cut. But as you can see from the way the chives are flopped over, we've been getting a lot of heavy, heavy rain. So this bed has the bunching onions, which these blooms are almost finished now, and they're starting to set seeds. I probably will just cut these off before that seed matures, because bunching onions will divide. So one bulb will become 2 bulbs next spring and so on. So each of these started as one onion like a couple years ago. And so they multiply pretty quickly. That's why they call them bunching onions, I think. And so in the spring, before these go to seed, and after I cut these seed heads off, I come through and I just actually dig out and pull out whole entire stalks to kind of thin them out, because I do, as you can see, have little strawberry plants in here that I'm trying not to crowd out and not necessarily succeeding. So this was an experiment. Nobody told me I should plant my bunching onions with my strawberries, but I thought I'd see how it goes. I think what I'm going to be doing, I think I will be moving most of these onions. Probably in the fall, I will move some of these onions. And I like having just kind of the random ones throughout the perennial bed. And I think that's how I'm going to do it, so that I don't have them in just like this big clump with the strawberries. And I'll give the strawberries a little bit more room to breathe. But you can see the strawberries are blooming and they are setting fruit. Looking good. This peony is looking good. Ugh. I think that might be a deer fly on there. They've been really bad this year. I think maybe from all the moisture. The bee balm is looking good. The purple auric back there is looking good. I hope it goes to seed and spreads everywhere. Poor chives got all blown over in the storm. But look at that pansy. Isn't that a cool color? Even the oregano got all blown over. This is the black barlow columbine. Some of them have these kind of double blossoms. Some of them are the single blossoms. But they're so pretty. Like, oh my goodness. I love them. I think I'm going to save a bunch of seeds off of these this year and share them with everyone because they're so pretty. Here's another little peony. This one came from Nana's place last year. We didn't end up having any of our trees defoliated from the tent caterpillars. The parasitic wasp took care of them for us, so that was really nice. But you can see we definitely had them visiting. Lots of the trees around town were completely defoliated, but yeah, none of the ones in our yard, even though they're all food for them. The garlic chives, sometimes they produce these little, I think how you say it is, bulbules, but they're like a clone little bulb, not this, but down here. But so you can plant those, and I usually just let them fall in the soil. I like to let volunteers, like these are little volunteer columbine, and these are little volunteer violas. It's just things I don't have to plant. I don't know if you can see these. Columbine, look so moody. This is a bag of wood chips that I've been meaning to spread in this pathway but haven't gotten to. Someday that'll happen, maybe by the next video. So here we have, this is one of my Nana's pansy mix. Isn't that gorgeous? And so in behind this pansy that is just going gangbusters. Oh, actually, look at this. Exciting. And this. There's little mushrooms. This is one of the reasons why I really like lining my garden beds with these rotting logs. The mushrooms are so cute and whimsical, but they're also really, really beneficial to the soil life. So these little guys here, I don't know if you remember in the last video, I was talking about how there was some volunteer plants in here that I thought were penstemon. They ended up being, I think they're called blue burr forget-me-nots. And so they produce burrs. I do not want those. And so I pulled those, and I was disappointed they weren't penstemon. So I replaced all of those areas with some penstemon. And these are a penstemon mix that are native to Northwest North America. So they have different shades of blues and purples. And these were, I started these in our milk jugs. They're doing pretty good. There's been lots of rain, so they're happy. We're starting to get berries setting on the roseberry plant. I really hope this puts out some runners, but I'm going to try and save seed off of these berries this year and start some more of these, because these have the pink flowers and they're so pretty, and they haven't really set off runners for me, so I want to try and propagate them by seed. This is a honeywort. It's a little bit sunburnt. This is one of the ones that I started in the milk jugs, and it just got really big before I opened the milk jugs up. I have pinched it back, and you can see it is putting out side shoots. So that plant, even though it looks a little sad right now, it'll be just fine. There's also a blanket flower that I started in the milk jugs. I have cut back this oregano, and it is coming back in full force. I will cut it down again. I've been removing, this is just a volunteer bunching onion. There was a whole bunch of walking onions in this bed that I have pulled out and replaced with. There's another blanket flower there. And, oh, I think that's actually, that's actually the cutting off of the top of this plant that has rooted because of all the rain. That's funny. And I have, I don't know if you can see, there's a little rudbeckia, a little rudbeckia, a little rudbeckia, a columbine. I think I identified the worms that were on them are columbine sawflies, I believe. And I think they're actually invasive. So I tried to find on any of the plants that I saw, like that the leaves have been eaten, I tried to find any of the worms, but I haven't seen any. So I am thinking that maybe the birds are eating them. But if I find any, I will pull them off and squish them. But if the birds take care of them, that's fine. So in here I have, this is a garlic. I planted a whole head of garlic a couple years ago. And I keep this in here to harvest scapes from. I think I might pull some of the cloves out and divide them out this year. And so underneath I have 3 more penstemon and some lupin. There is the tulip that's dying back. And so my idea is that these lupin will get nice and big next year. And as the tulip dies back and finishes blooming, these lupin will be large and cover that up so that we don't have to look at it dying back, but it can kind of do its thing. Back here I have some tall top verbena. And this is one of the native hollyhocks. This seeded itself in my garden and I just moved these guys over here. This is one of the peonies I moved from a different spot in the yard over here last year. So here's that peony. This is another one that I moved from a different spot in the yard, along with that peony. And then that peony came from Nana's. You're so cute. You're so cute and so good. I know I've introduced her before, but this is my little dog Tulip. And she is such a good girl. So these are pansies and violas that I planted here this year that we started inside. And this is a little strawberry runner that I moved over here. But, okay, so this is a weed. This is a little volunteer viola that seeded itself from last year. And it looks like those might be also, that might be an oregano that seeded itself here. But all the little violas are looking great. The snapdragons over here are putting on flower buds. So they'll be getting ready to bloom soon. I still have lots of milk jug plants, but I have emptied a bunch of milk jugs. Into this bed. I haven't started in the meadow yet. I wanted to prioritize getting this bed filled in because my thought is I can establish the plants here. And if you watched my video where we planted the milk jugs, I was able to come out here and pinch seed heads off of these plants in order to start. So like that's how I started all of this bee balm. I just came out here and pinched a seed head off of the bee balm I had in the garden. So my thoughts is I would like to establish this well and get it really nice and full before focusing a whole bunch of energy trying to maintain this huge space, because this is a 100-foot fence line where the meadow is. And I realized as I was planting a lot of these starts in this bed that it's going to take a lot to fill that in. So I want to establish this. This can kind of be my seed garden, and I can be pulling seeds off of established plants here and over the years establish out along the fence. So I still will be moving some of these starts out there, but oh gosh, I spent like 4 hours pulling the tiniest little strip of grass out there. So I need to just reevaluate that plan, I think. And so, like I say, I've been more focused back here. So I have filled in a lot of the blank spaces in this bed with perennials and then different annuals like I've been showing you. And so like we have our snapdragons here. We have our lupin, which will perennialize in this bed and hopefully reseed. These are purple lupins, and I think they're the native. So I'll let those just go gangbusters in here. And then I also have things like, here's a blanket flower. We have the snapdragons. This is a thyme. I have larkspur. Those things are all annual. The thyme might perennialize. Here is another black barlow columbine. So this is a perennial. I don't think that these are a really long-lived perennial, but I could be wrong. These are a Chinese aster called Pinky. This is the first time this one has bloomed. They're another short-lived perennial. Here is a snapdragon getting ready to bloom. Excited to see what color that is. These are the Tetra Supreme Ruffles mix. Looks like they have a stink bug. So I have, these are weeds, but this is another blanket flower planted in front of this iris. This one didn't bloom this year, but as these die back through the summer, I'm hoping that the blanket flower will kind of fill that space out along with our snapdragons here, which if I deadhead them, they will continue to bloom. So we still have lots of milk jug starts, but I have planted a whole bunch out. And these are, when I pinched back my tall top verbena, I just stuck the cuttings in here, and it looks like a couple of them have rooted. So that's exciting. Here you can see the thyme plant that I started from seed last year is going to flower. Another snapdragon. Oh, yuck. A flying queen ant. I should squish that. Oh! Little bee enjoying the cornflower. I planted it for you. I'm so glad you like it. So that's the cornflower as being demonstrated by our little bee friend. The 3 echinacea are looking good. I'm not going to walk back in there, but I did stick 3 hollyhock starts back there. And then this is the agastache. I have purple and a white one. The lamb's ear is looking like it's about to bloom for the first time here. Very exciting. And the irises have put on just a beautiful show this year. I learned something this spring from my friend Jackie that I did not know. Irises like to have their rhizomes exposed. Here's another variety. I just got these ones this spring at the Perennial Exchange. But if you see here, these are the rhizomes. And you would think, or at least I thought, you would want to have those completely covered in the soil. Well, I learned that irises like to have their rhizomes exposed to the sun, and they will bloom better. And so I exposed all the rhizomes this year, and ta-da! I got my first iris blooms. Aren't they stunning? So they're kind of finished up here. Ooh, that flying head is freaking me out. It's back over here for a second from the irises. I got excited and moved on faster than I meant to. This is the Perennial Rudbeckia. And I don't know, it looks better than it ever has. So I have hope that maybe that will bloom someday. And I also have a couple more penstemon back in here. And I don't know, I don't think our heuchera made it with all of the rain. I think it kicked the bucket on us, so that's sad, but I don't know, maybe it'll come back next year. Sometimes perennials are resilient like that. And there's another little honeywort, that blanket flower that's going to cover that iris hopefully for us. Another little blanket flower in front of this iris. These strawberry runners are putting on some new growth and establishing good, so hopefully we'll have lots of strawberries next year from those. The rosemary are looking okay. I'm trying to keep the weeds out of here. More snapdragons. Another blanket flower. Another honeywort. So lots of repetition in this bed. Back here, carefully step, I have more little penstemon. There's our little sedum. More lupins. What else did I put over here? I think that I put some verbena in here somewhere. Oh yeah, in behind this leek, there's a verbena. And another one. Those are the ones I pinched back so you can see that they're branching out. So they'll produce more blooms. The poppies are starting to sprout up. I didn't thin them, so these ones are going to be little. That's okay. Can't do everything all the time. Back behind the poppies, if you can see, there are sea holly babies. I could put 3 of them. I tried to do everything in like clumps of 3 mostly. I either like to do one single plant or clumps of 3 or clumps of 5. But odd numbers, usually no more than 5. So here is a clump of 3 Siberian Bergenia. This is a clump of 3 purple Agastache. These guys planted themselves, but this is a rocket larkspur putting on some flower buds, and I have let those go to seed all through this bed. They make a nice kind of filler, and they are the prettiest indigo color. This peony, I moved here last year from Nana's place, and it has 1, 2, hello, focus, 2, where'd it go? 3 flower buds that all look like they might have blooms this year, so that's exciting. This is a black Barlow columbine again in the sunshine. Look at how pretty. And some more thyme down here. Another wee little rosemary. And then I ended up, oh gosh, did I step on them? Shoot. Oh, they're already not looking great. So, actually, maybe we'll talk about that in a minute. Oh, I think this is a little volunteer bee balm. That's sweet. That, I think, is a volunteer blanket flower. Anyways, things are looking great. What else did I plant over here? I have, oh, the sun's coming out. It's kind of hard to see. I think I'll film this tonight too. Yeah, that's what we'll do. See you later.